Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Here is an example on how to connect to the GPU cluster and run your functional API assignment. So in order to connect to the cluster, I would recommend having a virtual machine running Ubuntu. That way you can access the internet, because when you connect to the GPU cluster through the VPN client, you're going to lose your internet access. And the VPN client only works on Microsoft machines and Mac machines. So here I have a virtual machine spun up with Windows. This way I can connect to the VPN through this Windows machine and still have my regular Windows machine for troubleshooting and accessing the internet in the background here. So here is my virtual machine, and I'm going to connect to the VPN using the Palo Alto Global Connect client. So I'm going to go ahead and connect. And I've already set up my Ubuntu shell on my Windows machine. This way it makes SSHing into the VPN very easy. So I'm going to SSH. I have an administrative account, so mine's MSDS. And I've already set up an alias so that the Copper alias is associated with the IP address for Copper. And then Dr. Nate George has a very good explanation on how to do this in the README document. And if you run into any questions here, as I'm sure you will, please review his video as well as his README document that's on the World Class website. So your username is going to be your Regis email username, your RegisNet username. So I've connected to the Copper GPU cluster. There's a number of folders here, but where you want to navigate to right away is to storage. So cd/storage. Now inside storage, you're going to find your own personal folder, and I do not have access to the folders here. So I can try to cd into someone else's folder that's not mine. I'll pick Mullins one. It says permission denied. So your folder is secure and only has your and only you can access it. So there's a getting started folder in here which you have access to. This is the one that Dr. Nate George set up. I'd recommend going through here, and here's his test job example and then his test Python files. I've created a folder, MSDS, and inside this MSDS folder, we have data that we're going to be using for the Kaggle project, a functional API folder if you want to use the GPU for your functional API assignment. And I'll also create one for the transfer learning for next week. For now, we'll go to the functional API folder. And you can see inside this folder, we have the functional API walkthrough and assignment. It's a .py and the test.job. I would recommend copying all the contents of this folder into your own personal folder. I've already set up in my personal folder using mkdir, make directory, a functional API directory. So I'm going to copy all the contents in the MSDS functional API directory into my personal directory where I've already set up a functional API directory. Now I can cd to that directory. And look at the contents. And here we have the assignment and that test.job. This assignment is very long and probably difficult to type out. So I'm just going to rename it. Now you can see I renamed it to this func_api.py file. I would recommend using Micro as your text editor. Here is the assignment. Unfortunately, because we're using Linux command line, we cannot actually view any graphs in here. So if you want to do the assignment in using the GPU cluster, instead of plotting your data, you're just going to have to not make any plots, as well as not plot the model summary, but just print the model summary. Or I'm sorry, not plot the model architecture, just print the model summary. So we can do Control Q to quit out of it. Actually, I will show you one more thing in here. And so this is just the introduction into the API architecture. And then for your assignment, you would be writing in your Python code in here. I would highly recommend writing the code in Google Colaboratory or on your own personal machine, and then secure copying your .py file over in here, because it's difficult to write code and troubleshoot using command line Linux on the GPU cluster. It's not optimal for that. So it's better to have a functioning .py file that you can securely transfer over to the GPU cluster and then run the model there. But you can try building your own model here as well. Let's look at the micro.test.job. And so the lines of code you're going to change in here are the output, test.out, and the test.error, and then the location of your GPU. I wouldn't necessarily mess with any of the other lines here when we connect with the Slurm. So the output, it's in storage. KStorf is my folder. And then I have a functional API folder, and then we're going to call this API.out. My error, if I have an error file, it's going to be KStorf/functional API. API.error. All right, looks like I have it right now. Storage, functional API. And then my Python file is the func.py. Control S to save, Control Q to quit, and then we'll submit it to the Slurm as batch. I didn't rename my test job, so I'm going to rename it job to func. That way things look better now. So I have my functional API job, and I'll submit that. So I've submitted, it's batch number 350, SACCT, looks at the run. 350 is running. And now batch job number 350 is completed. And then now I see my output files. So I can say micro API.out. And now here is the model summary for the model I built in that functional API.py. If you choose to do your assignments here from now on, that's great. You do need to be able to turn in both your PY file as well as your output file. So in order to do that, you have to do the secure copy transfer. So I'm going to just open up a new Ubuntu shell, and then we're going to do a secure file, secure copy from MSDS Copper. And again, this is going to be your username. And then it's from my storage folder, storage KStorf functional API. I'm going to copy everything. And then now this is where the Windows file structure is within the Linux Ubuntu command shell. So it's in mnt/c/users I created my username for this Windows machine is called Pain, and it's on the desktop. I'm going to transfer everything to my Python folder. I have to enter the password again. Everything should have transferred. Here in my Python folder, I have my functional API, my functional API error, and my functional API out file that has my model summary. And so now I can disconnect from the Global Connect, and now I have access to the internet, and now you can upload these files into the world-class assignment shell. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.